Welcome once again to the Solid Signal Podcast. The week is September 24th, 2018, and I finally have some good news, hopefully. You know, if it seems like it's been about 6 months since you've had any new broadcast television, well, you're probably about right. You know, the average broadcast season is now 22 episodes, and you see a lot of shows beginning to wind down toward the latter weeks of April, and folks, that was almost 6 months ago. So it is time. It is time finally for new broadcast television content, no matter what it is that you're really looking for. I'm not saying there wasn't anything over the summer. Some of the most popular competition shows are come over the summer, and there's also great content out there on broadcast. It's just the fall season is sort of when the premiere shows, no pun intended, the top shows will finally come back to us if you're a fan of This Is Us or what have you, or Big Bang Theory. Then you're going to find that those shows are finally back for, well, at least a few weeks, because as I said, with a 22 episode season, you're not going to get new content all year from these shows. You know, I've written some pretty negative stuff over the years, and I think this year was the most negative ever on the Solid Signal blog about the subject of new broadcast television. Because this is a podcast, it's really hard to embed links in it. Go to blog.solidsignal.com and search for Fall Preview, and you will see a bunch of content that both Jake Buckler and I have written over the years on the subject. The truth is that I do think that fall TV is not as good as it could be. It may be better than it ever was, but it sure isn't as good as it could be. This year, we're seeing a big response to the fact that Roseanne and Will and Grace were the two hit shows of the fall season last year. And so what are we seeing? We're seeing a lot of old ideas being recycled. We're seeing a lot of just shows kind of brought back, whether it's Last Man Standing that hasn't been gone too long, or Murphy Brown that's been gone for a generation. So originality is not exactly on the menu for this year, but that doesn't mean you won't enjoy it. As negative as I have been in print about fall TV and stuff like that, there's still stuff that I'm looking forward to, that I'm going to watch. Because in the end, you know, fall television and broadcast television in general, I think is designed to be much more of a shared and accessible experience. Yes, a lot of us watch Game of Thrones or some of the other excellent content found on premium satellite television. But it's always been broadcast TV that's brought us together. Broadcast TV has been the source of those shared experiences ever since Lucy went into labor in the 1950s, I guess. It's been broadcast television that has provided some of those really amazing moments that we all share. And I think depending on your age, you can think of half a dozen of them from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, even from the 2000s. That just, you know, resonated with everybody in the country. That's what broadcast television is about. Broadcast television was one of the first mass media. I guess you could say radio came first. That is absolutely true. But as a mass medium, as something that was available to everybody nationwide, it's something that we could all share. It's something that brings us all together and defines who we are as a country. And, you know, I kind of rag on broadcast television a lot because it tends to be watered down. And it's watered down for a reason. It's watered down because there are these guidelines, these rules the FCC has for decency, which has its roots in the idea that broadcast television is something that belongs to the people. It should be used to serve the people. And so there's this feeling that broadcast television should have a little bit more of an affirming role in our lives, that it should be relatively free of profanity and the kind of mature content that we don't want kids to see, no matter what time of the day or night it is. This is stuff that you know, these guidelines don't exist on cable, satellite, premium stuff, or streaming. And it means that broadcast television has the potential to be really a family medium in the way that cable, satellite, streaming aren't. And that's special. That's something that's worth preserving. It's not always something that's used to its best effect, but when it is, it gives us the opportunity to really come together, to cry, to laugh, to think, to have our horizons expanded. It's something very, very special. And finally, and I say this is, I feel like we've been waiting an awful long time. Finally, we're starting to see some new content. I personally am looking forward to it. I'm even looking forward to some of the shows that I was pretty hard on. I'm not looking forward to that one that's basically the Golden Girls with guys, though. I hate to single that one out, but that one, if there were ever a show that were kind of emblematic of what was wrong, that might be it. Because the Golden Girls, if you go back and watch it today, it's an extremely progressive show. And I don't just mean, red state versus blue state progressive. I mean that they were putting forth ideas and concepts back in the 1980s that were unheard of. It wasn't just older women living independent lives, although that was part of it, but all sorts of different mature subjects that you weren't seeing on television prior to that. It wasn't just your garden variety yuckfest. And yet, the reboot, which goes by the title of The Cool Kids, promises to take the idea and leave all of the innovative stuff behind. Instead of being three women dealing with society and how society views older people and women in general, this seems to just put forth the idea, led by David Alan Grier and Martin Mull, that you don't actually have to grow up just because you're in an older body, that life in a nursing home is a blast and it's just as much fun as high school, as long as you act like you're still in high school. I'd say that's the exact opposite of the message of the Golden Girls, a show that, honestly, I liked a lot in its first run, surprisingly, despite the fact I was outside its demographic. And I think that whenever you see television missing the point like that, that's a bad thing. On the other hand, when you see television that, as I said, brings us together, makes us laugh, makes us cry, that's a good thing. That's about it for me for the Solid Signal podcast for this week. I'm going to go watch some television. I hope all of you do too, and I will see you again next week.